So hopefully you can hear me. First of all, let me excuse myself a little bit because English isn't my mother language. So today's topic is, I will not talk about a new product, a new technology. I will talk about a revolution, more or less, because when we talk about healthcare, from Stratasys perspective, we talk about all market members of this field. So that means medical OEMs, life science companies, and hospitals. And from a technology perspective, we are providing technology which are combining the different interests and workflows of those market members. So first of all, thank you for attending this presentation. I'm happy to take questions afterwards. So what I would like to address today is many different aspects. First of all, I will give you a briefly idea about who Stratasys is. Then I will talk about why 3D printing is so important for healthcare. I will then dive into more the application part where you can, for example, use 3D printing. And finally, we will talk about the value proposition of 3D printing for the healthcare sector. So Stratasys is nowadays the global market leader in 3D printing, and we are focusing different industries. And healthcare is one of our main focus industries because we see the big need for new technology in order to improve patient care, but also the way how new medical devices are produced or how the first idea comes to reality. So that means Stratasys is a partner for the whole industry. Because what you see here on that slide is just to give you an idea about where 3D printing is already playing a big and important role. Because when we look to hospitals, 3D printing is not new to the industry, but it is definitely new when it comes to the usage of the technology. When you look to medical manufacturers, medical device manufacturers, you see many companies out there which are already using the technology to produce first prototypes of medical devices. But also drug companies, life science companies are using this kind of technology to improve their way of drug delivery, for example. So that means the impact of this technology or workflow, innovation, revolution is tremendously and very important. So for sure, when you talk about 3D printing, the first connection or relation to healthcare isn't that obvious because it is quite simple, a technology which comes from the automotive world. So that means car manufacturers know these technologies for many years, and many decades, to be honest. But 3D printing for healthcare has a good effect because at the end of the day we talk about people, we talk about patients and life quality, and this is where I see a big benefit of the industry of this technology. The reason for bringing in new innovative technologies in healthcare is quite simple. When you look nowadays to the different countries, we all get older, and the older people get at the end of the day, the sicker they are, because the rate of population diseases in Europe, in the US, in Asia is increasing year over year due to the fact that you see diseases like diabetes, COPD, etc. So that means the impact and the challenge for healthcare systems, and especially for the healthcare providers like hospitals, nurses, surgeons, are really a big challenge. And at the end of the day, you always need to balance between new state-of-the-art patient care and tight budgets. And this is the challenge for the healthcare system. And this is where 3D printing comes in, because the technology or the process is not just affecting one part of the healthcare system, it can affect the whole process. From a very first idea of a medical device until the surgeon plans the first procedure for the patient in the hospital. So that means the technology can be used everywhere, what you can imagine when we talk about healthcare. So coming a little bit more, or to dive a little bit more into the medical OEM industry, you see nowadays different challenges for the industry. So that means on the one hand, all of these perfect manufacturers have a high rate of new innovations. So they are investing a lot of money to create a new device which helps at the end of the day the patient. So where they struggle with is definitely the tight budgets of hospitals, like systems like what you have here in the UK with the NHS, but also in countries like Germany, France, wherever you are, they all have tight budgets, and they always need to balance between what is a must-have and what is a nice-to-have. So that means it's always a question: where can I invest, and where should I invest? And this is where I say, okay, it shouldn't be like that, because at the end of the day, each patient, it's worth it to invest in a better treatment. And this is where we at Stratasys definitely say, okay, we can help to come to that point where a surgeon doesn't have to think about economics, where it is just a question, we can create something what the patient can help at the end of the day. So what you see on that slide is just a number of challenges. So like, for example, tight budgets, new regulations coming from the governmental side, so like the new MDR in the European Union. So that means nowadays medical OEMs have to provide a full traceability about the first product, first idea, until the final treatment at the patient. So that means this is challenging, because you need to verify where all your raw materials were produced. So that means this is a challenge, and you need to store these data. So this is one. So that means medical OEMs, medical companies, need to invest a lot into their infrastructure, into their processes. And what the outcome of that is that they need somehow to optimize their own workflows. And this is, at the end of the day, a question: how can we optimize workflows? Can we reduce staff? Can someone do more jobs at the same time? Somehow you will always see reductions of quality when it comes to labor time, when it comes to product quality, etc. So that means at the end of the day, somehow it's always a question: where can we improve, and what can we do in order to help the industry to become smarter and to help them to achieve such targets? So 3D printing, like I said, is not just affecting one part of the game. It's affecting the whole value chain of a medical OEM company. So that means it starts with the research and development. It follows with the preclinical testing, the manufacturing, marketing, sales. So that means at the end of the day, 3D printing can play a big role everywhere within a company, within this sector. So that means at the end of the day, it's not a question who should be involved. At the end, everyone should be involved into this topic. And this is where we say, okay, Stratasys is a strategic partner for this industry, because we can help. So to give you a little bit more insight and clear examples where the technology can be used, I would like to start with research and development. So like I said, the automotive sector was one of the first industries which used 3D printing. But nowadays, you can see so many different medical manufacturers using 3D printing to create prototypes, because the outcome or the big benefit for companies are you don't have to invest into very massive tools in order to create a new design. You can print them quite easily, how often you won't. So that means there's an improvement of flexibility, also the cost reduction for a new device or a new prototype is given, because at the end of the day, you can print as much as you want. And you don't have to create, for example, if you're a manufacturer for plastic consumables, you don't have to invest into a new tooling in order to do injection molding. So that means 3D printing helps because it's faster, smarter, and cost efficient. This is just, again, a summary of what I already said. To give you an idea, the reduction of tooling costs is unbelievable high. And I don't know how aware of you, if you know the cost of tooling, but you can be sure that this is massively. Then a very, very important part, I think, as all of you know, before you launch a new product within the medical sector, you always should verify if there is any side effects. So that means what you need to do is preclinical testing before you get the CE approval or the FDA approval. So that means what you can do for, if you have a new medical device and you want to test, you can simply print out vascular, for example, like you see here on that slide. You can print out vascular systems in order to prove your first or your new heart catheter, just for example. So that means the outcome of 3D printing and preclinical testing is quite simple. You can print out realistic patient-specific anatomic models in order to run preclinical testings of your new device. So that means it's the next step within the value chain. Then, very, very important, because what you saw so far is already given and is already in usage. But when it comes to the manufacturing, there is a huge gap within the industry, because at the end of the day, the manufacturing can have the biggest outcome when it comes to the value proposition and, for sure, the benefits. What you see here is 3D printing nowadays can be used to print out complete end-use parts for medical devices. For example, what you see here is it was a 3D printed housing of a medical device. So that means whenever you have a number of medical devices, end-use part that you want normally you want to do injection molding, you can replace that much easier with 3D printing, because at the end of the day, it will reduce, again, your tooling costs, and it will help you to be faster and smarter. And especially, this is maybe nothing for big quantities, but whenever we talk about big investment goods, there's definitely really a need for such technology, because it will improve the process. In addition to these end-use parts, what you also see across the different industries, this is nothing special to the medical industry itself, is our specific and individual jigs and fixtures. So that means when you look to your working environment, you can individualize this working environment with 3D printed jigs and fixtures. So whatever helps to improve the way that you work 8 hours a day is definitely of benefit for you, because the employees, all the engineers, will have a big benefit at the end of the day. So these were more the prototyping, so research, development, manufacturing part. When we look to marketing and education, you would say, okay, yeah, why should our marketing guys use 3D printer? Okay, I can tell you, because, quite simple, if you have a new, for example, a new scalpel, if you have a new retractor, or whatever it is, you normally, nowadays, and I worked in the medical device industry, you normally go into a hospital and you try to convince a medical doctor to start using or to do a trial with your new medical device. This is old-fashioned, and it's always risky for the patient. What you can do is you can print out patient-specific models in order to educate and show the benefit of your medical device to a number of surgeons or medical doctors, nurses, whoever it is. So that means your sales reps, your marketing guys can use 3D printed heads, livers, whatever it is, in order to show the benefit of your new retractor, your new scalpel, or whatever it is, or heart catheter. So that means this is another area and another application for 3D printing. So like I said, it is affecting the whole value chain at the end of the day because it plays a significant role in all of these areas. This is another idea, another example of a 3D printed model. So like I said, it's a set model of a vascular system, and it plays a big important role when it comes to the sales cycle. Okay, we were talking about the manufacturing side or the medical OEMs. Talking a little bit about hospitals, surgeons. 3D printing in hospitals is not new because nowadays surgeons are using patient-specific models to plan their procedure. What they are doing nowadays is quite simple. You can do a CT scan, an MRI scan, and normally they can order anatomic model which they can use for the planning purpose. But, and this is where the but starts. The but starts there. We are now talking about a level of technology which can be used in the hospital itself. So the hospital itself doesn't need any longer to order a model. They can use the technology 24 hours, 7 days a week in order to produce their own patient-specific models in order to improve the different workflows within the hospital. What you see here is a personalized procedure kit. For example, if you want to form a mesh, like you see here on this picture, you can print out patient-specific templates in order to preform those mesh implants. And this is a benefit because normally you do that manually and it's never 100% accurate. With a patient-specific template, you can achieve 100%. And you can also sterilize these patient-specific templates. So that means it's really a game changer for hospitals and surgeons. The main application in a hospital is quite simple, the surgical preparation or surgical planning. Because if you think about the first stage of a patient is always he or she gets an X-ray. So in order to have more visibility for the surgeon, what's wrong? So what is the pathologic process behind? So nowadays with CT scanners, with MRI scanners, you always have visibility, but you never have 100% visibility. So with 3D printed patient-specific models, you can create 100% diagnostic visibility because there isn't any longer room for interpretation. Is it a tumor? Is it a healthy soft tissue? No. With a 3D printed model, you can directly see what's wrong, and you can identify the disease behind that. Is it a tumor? Yes? Okay, let's start to plan the procedure. And like I said, with a 3D printed model, you can also start to plan the procedure. For example, we see this many times in orthopedics, in the vascular surgery. Whenever you can plan the procedure, for example, planning the first cut, if you can preform an implant before it goes into the body, for example, in the maxillofacial departments, they are often used, for example, to preform implants in order to save time during the operation, because the more time you need the patient on the table open, it is risky. If you don't need to preform the implant during the operation, and you can do this with a patient-specific printed model 2 days in front of the operation, you will save time and the patient is not in risk. So that means you will reduce operation time, you will improve patient care. And this is a game changer at the end of the day for the whole healthcare system. So that means for hospitals, surgical planning is definitely the major application. To give you an idea how the process looks like, because normally when you start to talk about 3D printing in hospitals, it's always a little bit, there are many ideas and pictures, but it isn't that complex, because at the end of the day, a CT scan and MRI scan is always given if the disease is if it is a very urgent disease. So that means it starts with a CT scan. The CT scan provides you tons of data that you then normally start to bring into a right structure, like what you see here with a segment geometry. So that means if you have a 3D structure, you can start to think about to do the printout at the end of the day. And with going over the create of a mesh and generating then an STL file, because you normally have a DICOM data out of a CT scan, you just need to do the conversion into an STL file. And the final stage is then, like you see on the right side, the 3D printed vascular system. And this is where the planning procedure starts. Okay, so these were a lot of different applications and examples where you can use the technology. But it's always very important to talk about the value proposition, and especially for medical OEMs and medical device companies, it looks like that. I think the R&D process nowadays is very important. The more time you can save and the more efficient you can run this procedure, so that means if you can reduce the idea to go to market time frame, it will always help the medical company at the end of the day. Then the optimal product design, the flexibility that you have out of these 3D printed models is a revolution, because at the end of the day, you don't have to think about how much does it cost to do a new tooling or whatever. No, you can print as much as you want, and you can have great ideas, and you can create models as much as you want, and for sure you can adapt them. And this is a game changer at the end of the day for the research and especially for the developers. Then the individual manufacturing. If you can individualize the working environment due to 3D printed jigs and fixtures, this will help to reduce and optimize also the manufacturing process. Then profit margin. The less you have to pay for R&D processes, the less you have to pay for the manufacturing process, the more profit margin you will have at the end of the day. So that means this is a significant game changer for medical OEMs, medical device companies. And finally, and I think this is a base, reduced operational costs. Whatever you can do in order to reduce operational costs and to improve operational workflows is definitely welcome everywhere. So that means 3D printing is not a new technology, it's not a new product, it is a revolution for the whole value chain of medical OEMs. That's it. Thanks.